house. It looked like it was I don't know what it was. It was a flying saucer or what it was. It wasn't an airplane. It was not an airplane. It was down awfully low.
You're listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast with your hosts, Ash Ellis and Greg Tomlinson.
Hey, good evening and welcome to Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast. It's me, Greg, tonight with a short, slightly different episode tonight. But before we dive in, just a quick reminder, if you enjoy the show, hit follow on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. And if you really want to help us reach more listeners, leave a quick rating or review because it really makes a difference. You can also find all of our episodes, extras, etc. on pursuitoftheparanormal.co.uk and across all social media where we are at Pursuit of the Paranormal. Now, let's get into today's story. Six-toed footprints on the walls, a borrowed BBC microcomputer buzzing quietly in a Cheshire kitchen, and then a saved file appears on the screen with a message that chills the room. You live in my house, with lights the devil makes. Over the course of 18 months, a modest English cottage becomes a stage for one of the most extraordinary mysteries ever recorded. A Tudor man from the 1540s, a couple from the 1980s, and a mysterious third voice claiming to be from the year 2109. This is Pursuit of the Paranormal, and tonight we're diving into the story of the Dodleston Messages. Our story begins in late 1984 in the quiet village of Dodleston in Cheshire. It's the kind of place where life ticks by slowly. There's a pub, the church, a scattering of cottages and fields. It doesn't scream haunted hotspot. Meadow Cottage was old, creaky, and being renovated when this story begins. Living there was Ken Webster, an economics teacher, and his partner Debbie. And for a time their friend Nick also stayed while the work was being done. At first life was ordinary, but little disturbances began creeping in. Tins of cat food would be found stacked neatly into pyramids. Chalk marks would appear in the walls, wiped away only to return. In dusty patches of floor there were footprints with 6 toes. They'd cleaned them and had come back. Cold gusts blew through closed rooms, strong enough to lift a newspaper, and at night there were footsteps when no one was walking. Classic, low-level poltergeist activity, enough to unsettle you, but not enough to prove anything. But the cottage wasn't finished with them yet. Ken borrowed a BBC Micro B computer from school, one of those big beige computers with a chunky keyboard, a CRT monitor, and a 5¼ inch floppy disk drive. If you grew up in Britain in the 1980s, you'll know exactly the type I'm talking about. It ran a word processor called Edward. Simple stuff, no internet, no Wi-Fi, no modem. If you didn't save a file, it disappeared when the power was cut. Ken set this up in the kitchen where it stayed switched on most often. Because it was borrowed, the machines rotated. Whichever one was available came home. That would later matter because it meant that no single computer could have been preloaded with messages. At first it was just a handy typewriter, but soon it became the centre of something extraordinary. In early 1985, Ken opens the computer and finds a file he didn't create. Inside was a poem. Not a silly prank, not random gibberish, a structured message directly addressed to Ken, Deb and Nick. It read, Ken, Deb, Nick, nightmares are but dreams for the fearful. The bodies of the silent world are safe. The flower turns towards the sun and grows, but reaches too high and withers. Get out your bricks. Pussycat, Pussycat went to London to seek fame and fortune. Faith must not be lost. This shall be your redeemer. It's unsettling. The tone is serious, almost sermon-like, with warnings about fear, ambition and faith. It doesn't sound like something would type it for a laugh. Ken was puzzled but brushed it off until the second message arrives. The next file feels completely different. The language is older, heavier, almost Shakespearean. It's signed LW and it's angry. The writer declares, "You live in my house, with lights the devil makes. You have committed a great crime." Now imagine reading that in your own kitchen. Whoever LW is, they believe the house is theirs, that Ken and Debbie are intruding, that modern conveniences, the lights, the computer, are unnatural, even diabolical. From this point on, the messages continue and the relationship between the household and LW develops into a bizarre back and forth across time. At first the messages are signed LW, then a name is given, Lucas Wayneman. This Lucas claims to live in the 1540s under the reign of Henry VIII. He says he lives on the same site as Meadow Cottage. But eventually, Lucas confesses that this is not his real name. He reveals himself as Thomas Hawarden, a scholar from Brasenose College in Oxford. He claims to have met this great humanist, Erasmus. He writes in a voice both moral and anxious, full of warning. And sometimes Thomas seems to be able to see into the 1980s kitchen. One day, Ken leaves a photograph of a Jaguar car on the table. Later, a message arrives. "A fine cart, but it will not go far without a horse." If genuine, Thomas is describing what he sees, but filtered through Tudor vocabulary. The messages also include tests. In one, Thomas says he studied at Jesus College in Oxford, but the college wasn't founded until 1571. When Ken challenges this, Thomas insists that it was deliberate, a trap to see whether Ken was genuine, whether he was really listening. Ken checks records of Brasenose. There's no Lucas Wayneman, but there is a Thomas Hawarden listed around that time. It's not proof, but it's enough to give pause. A friend of Ken's, Peter Trinder, examines the language. Many words are historically accurate, though the grammar feels strange. This again divides opinion. Months pass and the correspondence continues. Then a new voice arrives. It identifies itself as 2109. The tone is short, cold, almost bureaucratic. It says what's happening is part of a guided experiment, that Thomas's Limes Boist, or his box of lights, was given to him by them, and that they can edit or block his messages. A two-way conversation has become a three-way exchange across time. Thomas in the 1540s, Ken and Debbie in the 1980s, and 2109 claiming to oversee it all. Thomas's messages grow darker. He says he's been accused of witchcraft because of the box of lights. His landlords, the Grosvenors, order him to leave. In his final notes, Thomas promises to write a manuscript about everything that's happened and to hide it for future discovery. Then, silence. The manuscript has never been found. Ken published The Vertical Plane in 1989, documenting the entire story. A new edition came out in 2022 with extra reflections. In total, around 300 messages were received. Some of the language fits Tudor England, some does not. Investigators from the Society of Psychical Research visited, but nothing ever happened while they were present and no report was filed. Later, linguists argued the writing style resembled Ken's own. So we're left with a mystery, a strange house, a stack of messages, and the question, was this a haunting, a hoax, or something entirely different? The Dodleston Messages sit in that liminal space where the paranormal often lives. Too much detail to dismiss outright, not enough proof to be conclusive. What is a clever and sustained hoax? Are poltergeists making use of modern tools? or, as 2109 claimed, an experiment stretching across time itself. Whatever the truth, it remains one of Britain's most fascinating unsolved cases. This has been Pursuit of the Paranormal. I'm Greg. Thanks for listening to this short, slightly different episode. And if you did enjoy this episode, don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss an investigation. Leaving a rating or review helps more people to find the show, and it really does support what we do. We'll be back soon with more tales from the unknown. But until then, thanks for listening.